We've just come out of closed session, and at this time we'll certify that only things according to that motion that were personnel related were discussed during closed session. Certify.
Kaitlin Johnson certified.
Personnel certifies. And we'll let the record show Mr. Rubin is not present. Ask.
I'm going to read
What is it?
Yeah. Pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3712D, each board member shall certify to the best of his or her knowledge the following. 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting is convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the school board. And then we did the roll call.
And the record shows Mr. Rubin was asked. All right. And there are no motions coming out of closed session specifically that will be addressed in consent agenda. So at this time, if you would please stand, we'll say our pledge, followed by a moment of silence. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Take a moment and reflect on the responsibility given us to govern in the county and the responsibility we have to our little people. Thank you. This evening, we are for the first time having videotaped video audio taping of our meeting. So if you can't hear us in the back, it's going to be really helpful if you would just make a motion or do something that we would know that it's hard to hear. Because if you can't hear me in the back, or you hear any of the board or the superintendent or any of the speakers, it's obviously not going to come up on the tape, and which is really irritating to watch a video where you can't tell what I'm saying. So please motion us. Welcome to the April regular school board meeting. The portion of the meeting that we're in now is open session. We're here to accomplish the business of school for our students. This is not a forum for public debate on issues, although the board may debate them. This is not a forum for personnel issues, and such discussion is considered out of order. Personnel and pupil personnel issues are handled in closed session only. The board wants to hear from members of the public. However, comments are being limited to provide equity to all speakers and to ensure that the meeting is reasonable in length. If you have questions during the session, you may ask your representative or a school administrator for clarification after the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming tonight. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda for this evening? We have a motion from Ms. Johnson and a second from Mr. Grove. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no. So ordered. We're going to move now to our student recognition. Dr. Matthews.
We are very pleased tonight. We'll be recognizing two different groups of students. First, I would ask Ms. Kathy Jones, principal of Rappahannock County Elementary School, come to the podium where she'll introduce Elaine Frank, and I hope Lainey Vickers as well for the science fair winners. Ms. Jones.
So it is my pleasure this evening to be able to introduce you to our 6th and 7th grade science teachers. These ladies spend a good portion of the year working with students on the scientific method, and it's kind of the original project-based learning. The students are doing authentic science work under their leadership. They take a lot of their time, energy, and efforts to guide our students through that process. So I'm going to have them come, Ms. Elaine Frank and Ms. Lainey Vickers. They've both been with us for quite some time, and they are pros at their jobs, and you'll see tonight the quality product that their students have put together.
13 counties represented 38 schools, over 300 students, I believe close to 400. We invited 16 Rappahannock County School students to go, many which volunteered. We came home with 6 places at the awards assembly, so we're going to have the students come up, starting the 6th grade. Well, Ms. Vickers is going to introduce
Cassie Gaynor isn't able to be here tonight, but her project was on students and heat in the classroom, whether the amount of students affected the temperature in the room. And Heather Williams, her project is on a solar oven, and she'd like to show you her board and talk a little bit about her project.
So for my project, I did a solar oven, and I measured to see how edible the foods would be when I cooked them in the solar oven. I did it over a 3-day period, and I did them all at the same exact time during the day. And I used 2 different solar ovens, and one worked better than the other.
Good job. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna have, no, stand up there, Mary. Safety numbers. All my 7th graders that are here, I'd like you to come up, and we'll just go into time. So 7th grader Rachel Wegworst took 3rd place. She was our only place. She won a plaque and a certificate for her project on UVA radiation and DNA. Dawn Del Rosa with an honorable mention with weather's effect on accuracy of the 22. Alec Petty has an honorable mention with his project on bioremediation and chemical dispersion. I didn't know what that was either. In oil spills. And Augustine Garcia, I don't see honorable mention for his project on chromatography with leaves. So, do we have volunteers or? Go ahead, Alec.
So my project was evaluating the effectiveness of bioremediation and chemical dispersion and cleaning oil spills. So first let me tell you about what bioremediation and chemical dispersion are. So bioremediation is basically where people, they take microbes that are genetically modified and they put them in oil contaminated water, and it basically helps clean up the water by having more microbes. And then you have chemical dispersion, where what that is you have a dispersant such as soy lecithin, which is the one I use, which it basically takes a big clump of oil and breaks it into smaller clumps of oil. And then what I did is I tested them over a period of 4 weeks, and I basically tested to see which one would have the most effective oil going down, and it turns out that the mix of bioremediation and chemical dispersion is the most effective.
So my project was testing the effects of ultraviolet radiation on bacteria. So what I did is I took a bacteria plate and I covered half of it with aluminum foil.
Christine made.
What I did is I used rubbing alcohol to extract the chlorophyll and different pigments from different leaves, and that when I did that, I extracted all the different colors and pigments that the leaf had. And then I used a color spectrum and all the different light waves that the colors had, and compared it to the first color and then the colors I got afterward. And then I just used the color spectrum to determine the new colors.
Any questions?
I wish I could have. Just amazing.
They worked very hard, so.
Yes, and these students, as they mentioned, they went to the spring break. They only had Thursday, Friday, and Monday. And the teachers went with them, and we really appreciate it. They did an outstanding job. I would hope that the board will allow us to get them together for a big picture.
I had the pleasure of being down there that day. It was, not only did the youngsters do a great job, and the teachers did as well, if not better, but they had a good time too. And and they met lots of different people from lots of different counties, all of the same liking. You know, kids who like science like to talk to each other. It was a good thing to see.
We are very proud of all of you. Now, Ms. Bowler, where would you like them to be on the stage?
Standing behind them.
What can we do about this podium?
They could
Stand
stand
behind them.
the board, yeah, thank you. Behind the board.
Yeah, I was also thinking it's good, you know, for your spring break to get crashed is good rehearsal for college, because a lot of
We
times
wanted to put on the spring break of us.
Yeah, spring break is, most of my spring breaks were left stuff. It'd be hard to get the whole,
Yeah, it is. I gotta think we can do that.
if you come over here, you might not get them.
I'm in a good place if you want to come right here, Ms. Bowler.
I'm too close for this.
What about right here? This is good. Everybody look and smile. I personally want to thank all of you, and I'm
Great representation by you all. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Take care.
Good to see you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. The second recognition on our agenda is the VSBA Regional Student Art Contest. And what we actually do is our school board is, are members of the VSBA Association. And so each year, schools and elementary, middle, and high schools are asked to participate if they would like to in the VSBA Art Contest. In our region, we're allowed to send two because of the elementary and the high school. And so what we do is we have a rating system where the art teacher will submit the best of the best up to the central office, and then we have a committee that blind scores these to find out which are the top two. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Jones and Mr. Tupper. And we have up here, as they're talking, the students' artwork and also a certificate for that.
I'd like to ask Ms. Grady to come up as well. Our art teacher was able to be here tonight, if you don't mind.
Camden's piece is really amazing. It's a piece called a mandala, and a mandala is basically a Sanskrit word that basically means circle, so it is designed all based on circles. And she not only had to create her own symbols that represented different parts of her day or life, but then she also really excelled at the way she shaded this piece with color. And if you get a chance to look really closely, she's a very talented young lady.
Camden, why don't you come on over, and we're going to present you with your certificate.
your school board, Candy, your picture has been framed for you. And we're hoping that you will let Ms. Jones keep it at the elementary school and show it off a little bit and then take it home at the end of the year. So you'll have that nice picture framed. So would you like a picture of her with her picture? Or you want to wait till we get them all?
Let's do both of them.
Okay. Mr. Tucker.
Okay, Kim, if you could come on up. Tell a little story about Kim. Earlier this year, she came to me with some of her friends, and they had arranged for this fantastic field trip. And right away, you run into students all the time who are just bright and happy and outgoing, and every question I had asked that day, they had an answer for. They ended up going on a great trip. So anyway, when her name came up with this artwork, I was excited to be able to get her to come tonight. Ms. Richards Joy is not here tonight, her art teacher, but Kim, if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about your picture?
Yeah, sure. So my art teacher, Ms. Richardson, she approached me a couple months ago, and she told me about this art contest because I'm in Art 3 and like another sort of group of art kids. And she wanted to know if I wanted to do this art contest. And so I painted this cat, and that's basically it.
So I was in this art class the other day, and they're firing their pottery right now, so it's pretty awesome stuff happening in there. But, and also this young lady has super grade. She is a high flyer in all respects, and I'm really proud that she's ready to represent us. I'd like to keep your artwork for a while too.
Yes, and Kim, yours has been framed as well for the school board. So if we can get y'all together, we're going to get a picture for the website as well. If you take your artwork and maybe hold it in front of you. You know, I'm supposed to. Always. Well, we're so very proud of you. Well, you may need to rearrange that. That picture's not, it's not very good. So maybe
Thank you.
there we go.
That's perfect.
Catch in front of the other one.
Hold the picture.
We didn't know whether to take it off. No, we didn't want to mess up your frames, but we can maybe get it off a little quick. Actually.
That's okay. It's fine. It's just fine.
Thank you all.
Parents, thank you for bringing them
Thank you for
tonight.
coming out tonight.
Really appreciate it.
Wonderful thing. I'm so glad you set that up. And, thank you. Yeah, after the science demonstration and the art, I feel totally equipped to Very talented bunch. All right, at this time, we move on to the report of our student representative, Jacob.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. I kind of forgot about this and had to run from the auditorium to here. Very bad. Yeah.
You're on time, that's all.
Yeah, someone was like, didn't she say to leave at 6:30? And it just hit me. I was like, oh no. But anyway, so for academics, there are final benchmark testing taking place in preparation for the SOLs for math, English, social studies, and science. And then Ms. Waddell's anatomy class took a field trip to the National Museum of Health and Medicine, which I saw some pictures of it. It was pretty cool. Definitely wish I was in that class. But then AP testing and SOL testing are all throughout May. And then art class. A lot of students in our class are juniors, so they're doing preparations for our prom, which is the Starry Night theme. So they're doing a lot of little villages for the centerpieces and a lot of recreations of famous art pieces. So a lot done with that. And for school celebrations, it was student art month, so there was all artwork all throughout the hallways. There was one on every door, so it looked pretty good. And then the prom's coming up, which is Saturday, April 23rd, 8 to 11:30 at Little Washington Schoolhouse. And then after prom is here from 12 to 4:30. And pre-prom, SAD and MAD Club presentation on April 20th during Flex in the gym for 10th through 12th graders. And then preparation for this year's musical race continues, which is where I just came from. And induction ceremony for May 9th in the high school auditorium for NHS. Okay, yeah. And then senior trip went to Tennessee on Sunday, and they're coming back Wednesday. And the band had a coffee house last Friday. I went to that, it was pretty good. I liked it. And then athletics, there's baseball, softball, track, soccer, and they're all doing pretty well. And then, we had a track meet last night, and we have one tomorrow, and a lot of kids already qualified for states yesterday, and the last invitation, so that's good. We have like, see about 5 or more that qualified. So far so good. And I think that's about it.
Thanks. Any questions for Jacob? Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. No problem.
All right, moving on, donations. Are you going to give us a roll call on that? Yes?
I have several donations to report. The first one is from PTO in the amount of $970, and that's for the Dr. Seuss Assembly. Flow donated $425 for Earth Day Recycling Puppet Show. The PTO donated $588 to purchase Tuesday folders for 2016-17 school year. Rappahannock County retired teachers donated flower bulbs and soil to the elementary school. RCEA donated $50 for incentives for Read Across America. Ripon and donated $100 for the after prom party. Valley Eye Clinic donated $50 for the after prom party. G&G Furniture donated $600 for the after prom party. Clark Brothers donated $100 for the after prom party. The Robert Darby Foundation donated $100 for the after prom party. PTO donated $900 for the after prom party. Warrenton Toyota Scion donated $200 for the after prom party. And Aerojet Rocketdyne donated $250, and that's to be used for the band program at the high school. And I have done the donation letters, and they're loaded for you to see on board docs.
$2,050 for the after prom.
Yes.
Yes. you'll see the minutes. We've had a chance to read them. Are there any comments regarding the minutes from our March 30th work session? We'll be adopting those during the consent agenda as well. Are there any comments or modifications? None?
Yes, sir. They're adopted. Now, the minutes, remember we pulled those out of the.
Right, but these were, oh, we do those now?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the minutes of March 30th?
So moved.
We have a motion from Ms. Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Ms. Meyer. All in favor, aye? Opposed, no. So ordered. And is there, was there verification regarding the bills from last month? This month, sorry. Yes, from this month. Well, the ones we're about to approve.
Well, the bills have been reviewed and they're being presented for approval and payment.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. At this time, I ask for a motion to accept the consent agenda. So we have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Uben made the motion. Second by Mr. Drove. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no. So ordered. Accepting donations, paying the bills, personnel report and attendance reports. Moving on to reports of superintendent.
Yes, sir. 5.1 is an update on summer school plans. We are currently looking at running summer school on June 6th through June 30th. We will do as we have in the past. We'll run it Monday through Thursday. The times are to be determined. They're either going to be from 8 to 12 or 8 to 2. We've done 8 to 2 before, and we've had help with Headwaters from 12 to 2, and we're kind of working that out. If we don't have enough coverage one way or the other, then we'll go 8 to 12. So we'll be letting the board know about that. And as you may remember, you asked me when we were doing the spring after-school tutoring to just get you a list of names and just drop it to you during an update during the week. All of the names of teachers that will be doing summer school will be recruited by the principals of those schools, and they will all be your currently employed staff. Occasionally, with project graduation, we might have to get someone from outside. That does not look like it'll happen this year. It hasn't in a couple of years. We've been able to use our own staff for all of that. So we're looking forward to that. That will give us the 6th through the 9th, 15th through the 16th, the 20th through the 23rd, and 27th through the 30th. So we cram a lot in during the school weeks. We also do another batch of SOL testing for the high school at the conclusion. All right, and 5.2. I'm going to ask, this is the special education annual plan. I'm going to ask that Ms. Johnson come up to the podium and present the plan. Each year, the special ed plan must be presented to the board. She's already, as she'll tell you about this, presented it to her advisory council. And this will be an action item later. It must be approved by the board, and you must also approve her advisory council nominees for the committee. And she will give you an update on the annual plan. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Good evening, members of the board. In presenting the annual flow-through grant this year, the advisory committee felt this would be a good opportunity to update the board on the events that that particular group has been working on this year. Our Parent Education Advisory Committee, as many others in our locality, has struggled over the past few years to have a significant number of members, and we have really put forth an effort this year to try to make our advisory group not only an informative group for our parents, but to try to actively engage our parents in participating in the planning and preparation for programs for our special education students. In the annual report that I submitted to you through board docs, the introduction noted that there are 6 purposes of the Special Education Advisory Program that are outlined in the regulations for special education in Virginia. The first of those purposes is to let the school board know of needs that children with disabilities may have within our school division. The next is to inform us in the board of strategies that might be useful in helping to meet the needs of those students. Also, the group is to submit periodic reports to the school board informing you of any needs that our children may have. Also, to serve as ambassadors to interpret special education information to people in our community, to keep abreast of new initiatives that may be occurring in special education that they can inform the school board of, and lastly, to participate in the review of the local school division's annual plan, which was done a couple of weeks ago. Our advisory committee is required to meet 4 times a year. This year, we've had 4 meetings. We are contemplating having a 5th meeting in May to kind of wind out our year. We're hoping to do something at the rec center in Little Washington that can engage the children as well as the families. The group is made up of hopefully a diverse membership. That's the piece that we struggle with, is to kind of build our membership all together. Right now we do have parents and guardians of persons with disabilities. We do have 1 teacher. We've off and on had different representatives from our community who have come in. We can also welcome people from civic organizations, business or industry, persons with disabilities, and 1 area of emphasis for the coming school year is we would like to have one of our students who is identified with a disability to serve on our advisory group. I'm giving you names of 8 people who have formally applied to be members of the Special Education Advisory Group this school year. And then we also have employee consultants. The regulations say that the group is to be made up mainly of parents of students with disabilities and persons with disabilities. As far as the school division, we're only allowed to have 1 formal representative who is employed by the school system. And this year, we were fortunate to have Jocelyn Alexander, our 7th grade special services teacher, stepped up to the plate to be that representative for us. This year, the Special Education Advisory Group overall had 4 goals. As I mentioned earlier, the first was to increase our membership and attendance at the advisory committee meetings this year. We had kind of an open house meeting at the start of the school year, which was a big pizza party in which we encouraged the parents who were there to formally join us by signing up to be members. We were able to actually have 8 people who signed up to be members this year, and through our 4 meetings this year, our average attendance was 8 people, taking those members who sometimes came, sometimes weren't able to come, along with staff members. We did move our meeting time to 6 o'clock this year to accommodate parent schedules. When we met at the start of the school year, they indicated that that time worked better for them. Before, we had usually done it right after school. And we did let them know that their children were welcome to come to the meetings also. Our second meeting, we planned a game night for the children who came. The 3rd meeting, we had a movie night so that the children could participate in that while their parents participated in the meeting. Last meeting, we kind of had open gym night. So the fact that parents were able to bring their children with them seemed to be helpful also. We also set a goal to better advertise our meetings this year. We send notices home with all of our students. We post those on our special education webpage, and we were able to get that in the meeting section of the Rappahannock News several times this year. A 3rd goal was to provide parents with relevant information, and we really worked hard this year to ask parents what it was that they needed from us. They came up with the topic of home-to-school connections this year. We also had a focus on reading because that was an overall emphasis for our special needs population in general. Frequently asked questions were addressed with the parents also. And probably the most tedious part of our meetings this year was trying to formalize our meeting processes. Because our attendance has been so small, tend to just give information and not really work through a meeting process. And so, we do have a formal slate of members to present to you at this point in time. We have agreed to follow a standardized meeting agenda. We are seeking a chairperson and a secretary for our group, and for some reason, we don't have people jumping up and down to do that. We have some shy members in our group. If we are able to do that, I'm slowly encouraging people that, this is your group, you take the lead, and I am here to assist you in having this organization meet your needs. So we will continue to work towards that goal. For the coming year, we're going to continue to work on our membership, but we also want to increase the presence of the group in the school and the community, look for a student member, and also investigate how we might be able to learn from other groups. We did participate in a state advisory group meeting over the course of the past summer that's given us lots of guidance, so just kind of moving in those directions to see how other people are doing it. Just a quick advertisement, we have signed up to go to the special games this spring. If you will remember, 2 years ago we went and I took 2 students, and this year I'm hoping to take 10, so I'm really excited. That is going to be on May the 6th at Culpeper High School, and it's from 9 to 1 that day, so I'll be getting a bus and we'll be taking some of our students and teachers there to wear new t-shirts and win ribbons. So my main purpose of being here is to ask for your approval of the local special education annual plan. This plan stays pretty consistent from year to year. I have given, for the presentation purposes, the 2 main pages of this grant that give the breakdown of funds that we are proposing for the 2016-17 school year. We basically have 6 categories there. The bulk of the funds that we receive from this grant would go towards the salaries that we have identified in the grant that we are going to pay for with these federal funds. We have a small amount in there for the FICA and the benefits. The amount is a tad bit smaller this year because we have some funds left in this year's current grant that we can carry over to next year. The 3rd category, the contracted services, will take care of serving occupational, physical therapy, and counseling services. Then we have a small amount in there for teacher training and materials and supplies, which gives us our grand total. And the last page, we get a separate grant for our early education preschool program. We will use funds for that to help pay for the occupational physical therapy, and they also have funds set aside for materials and supplies. So this has been presented to our advisory group, has been approved by them, and we respectfully ask your approval this evening. Are there any questions?
Any questions? So, just so I'm clear, so I'm looking at, the report is based on achievements from this year, the top 2 pages, right?
Yes.
And the bottom 2 pages are, it's a 2-year plan.
Yes.
With 1-year numbers in it, with 1-year totals.
It's the biennial?
It's a biennial budget, okay, so it's a 2-year budget.
Yes, it's
Okay.
a 2-year budget.
So basically what happens, these are federal funds.
Yeah.
So Carol knows how much money she's going to get. She just has to put it in the categories for those people. And what happens locally is we have a match for this, and it's about $1,250,000 to cover special education services for our special needs population. But this is the standard federal money that comes through.
And the other question I had was, I see on page 1, it says committee members for 2015-16,
Yes.
right? But then it says SPED advisory committee representatives. So, but I guess I'm just a little confused. I'm trying to make sure I understand. Your goal was to present a slate of members to the school board in the fall for approval of a 1-year term, is what it says.
counselors that we currently have, and our proposal this evening is for this group of people who have signed for formal membership now to be approved to serve for the
16,
coming
17.
school year.
So it's for 16, 17.
Yes.
So she's trying to get them in a sequence where they will serve 1 year, she'll have a chairman, she'll have a vice chairman, or so forth. And so this is the group that's been interested.
Right.
So they kind of have to go forward another year because she doesn't have anyone else.
This,
And we're really tickled that they're helping us out.
this group of 8, they're all parents.
7 are parents, and the last, Jocelyn Alexander, is the teacher representative.
And it's possible next year there'll be a student.
There's possible there may be a student, and there's also a possibility that I might come back to you in August with some more people to be members.
That would be good.
Great. All right, thanks. Carol. Any other questions? So what will happen under action items, then we would entertain a motion to approve the plan and the committee, correct?
Yes, sir.
Everybody clear on that? Good. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
Ms. Johnson.
Nice job. The CT annual plan, I'll ask that Ms. Grimsley comes forward. Each year, Ms. Grimsley gives an update on the career technical education plan. That is also loaded. Now, this plan is a little bit different than Carol's because this one has more of student data-driven type information, so she'll be sharing that with you. And it shows you where we've come from, but also things that we have improved and some things we might need to work on. So, Ms. Grimsley.
Thank you very much. Good evening. This is that time of year where I have to give the annual performance report as part of our local planning process to receive our Perkins funds. That's a federal grant stream that we get every year to help with our vocational services in the high school. So I'll just go through each of the goal areas that we're rated on as compared to where the state is and where Rappahannock High School is, and then how we rated, how we came up with our goals, and there you have it. All right, our first slide here is the academic attainment goals. You see in pink is the state standard for vocational ed, and then the gray is Rappahannock, so we've done quite well. And every year we do very well in academic attainment. Academic attainment is measured in English and math for both all students that are completing a career sequence. That means 2 or more courses in a career pathway. For instance, if I were a culinary arts student and I wanted to complete culinary, then I would do culinary 1, culinary 2, take a credentialing exam and become a completer. So that's what this is measuring. Yes.
EOC.
End of course, sorry. EOC means end of course English test and your end of course math test. So that's the highest level of attainment you can get in the high school based on the standards of learning test. The end of course English, end of course math. And then our special populations you see on the right hand side. So even our special populations scored at 100%. So that was incredible. So special populations is a subgroup that's made up of your economically disadvantaged students, special needs students, students with special needs students, ELL students, and then non-traditional career preparation students. So that would be a female in a building trades course, so non-traditional career preparation. So all those groups together give you your special population course subgroup, and then that's how you get those numbers.
So male and culinary would be the same thing.
Actually, it's female in culinary.
It's a male-dominated.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah. The gender roles are switching. Awesome. Okay, this is our credentialing test participation rate. We're rated on our participation rate. We have pushed for the past few years now, every year, to increase our test participation rate. The state standard is only at 58% of your completers needing to take that. However, it is becoming a grad requirement. So that state standard is kind of superfluous if you think about it, because 58%, but then everybody needs it for graduation. So, but this is your students who complete the career sequence and take a test that gives them a credential. So if I'm in culinary and I pass a workplace readiness skills test or a service aid or something of that nature, that gives me a credential in that career sequence. So then I meet that standard. So that's what we're rated on there. And again, Rappahannock is far exceeding that goal.
They actually achieved that, sir. They didn't just take the test, but they achieved it.
Well, participation rate is just participation.
I was gonna say, 'cause those are some hard,
They are.
some hard stuff.
So keep that in mind when we say we've been pushing, I think we went for all of our finishers 2 years ago now, Mike? I think 2 years ago to have all of our finishers, even though it wasn't yet a grad to it, get studies, see how it is, see what types of implementation dips we had. So we've been working on this for quite a while, so now we're at a very high rate, and we've increased the number of exams, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Next slide is our passing credentialing exam. So here's your slide that shows of our groups how many are passing these tests. So as you can see,
That's still impressive.
it is. 38% is your state standard, and both of our groups are hitting at 73% in both subcategories, which is very, very impressive. When we give the workplace readiness test, when we started doing that a few years ago, we saw a heavy implementation that we weren't close to that. And the next slide will show where we've been and where we are now. So as you can see, I love trend data. When you see that longitudinal progression, that's been really, really great to see over the years. So our participation is going up in the exams, and now that we're getting just about everybody, you're going to see that plateau a bit at the top there, and our pass rate has done the same trajectory, which is exactly what we want to see. So we're very, very happy. Okay, and then our high school completion and graduation rates. The completion is once you complete all of your requirements you need for graduation, and then you also have your credentials, whereas graduation rate is just your graduation without the credentials. So that's the separation. So again, Rappahannock 100% the last 4 years with our completion rate, and Rappahannock exceeds the state standard the last 4 years. This past year we're at the 93%. So doing really well. This is vocational. After high school, we are also rated on our placement percentage, as well as our response rate on these surveys, and it's just what it sounds like. It's a big stack of surveys, and sit there over the summer and call every single kid. What are you doing? Where are you at? What do you do now? Are you taking a class that's like your vocation? It's all vocational related, so we do that every summer. We've gotten better at it, so every summer, before the kids go off to graduation, we give them a sheet to fill out so we know exactly where they're going, what's their most recent phone number that I can get them, put 5 down, where's mom's number, because it is tough to track down these kids once they're out of these doors. So yeah, we're getting better at that. So our response rate is 97 now, so that's huge. Okay, non-trad career prep, like I said before, this is your female in building trades or welding, and even your female in culinary. I think the only one that we have that's a male non-trad is computer applications. That's the one with the male that's non-trad, but everything else is female. So here's your numbers, and we were at 47% in completion with our non-trad, which is up from 25% last year. The state standard is at 25%. So, Mike, I think those pink helmets in welding are working. We're getting the non-trad participation in there, so that's good. Okay, so here's a summary of all our indicators that we met this year. Our special populations pass rate being the first time we've hit this yet, so since I've at least been over CTE, so this has been great. So that's a lot of indicators. We met them all, and not just met them, but slayed them, which is awesome. Okay, and then indicators not met, the only one is our special populations competency attainment rate with transition. So that means they completed their sequence and then went into a field after high school related to that sequence. So that's something that we're kind of planning our goals around this year in our local plan. All right, so our goals this year, we're going to continue to hold our career day. Our career and tech department with their CTE advisory is very big on this day, and it's quite a success. The community really comes out to support career and tech ed. We work really closely with Next Step, and it's just a great day. And we also have our interview simulation where all seniors go through an interview panel, just like a real on-the-job interview. So we're trying to give that experience to all of our high school kids. We will try to enhance our WOW Career Expo for 7th graders. That's the career and technical directors group that I'm a part of. There's 7 school districts that are part of this. Last year was our first annual WOW Career Expo that we didn't know would even happen in August because we were running around like crazy, but it was huge. We ended up serving 3,000 7th graders across the region over the course of 2 days at the Body Renew Fitness Center in Winchester. And what that was, when you're thinking 7th graders, getting them interested in career and tech, they're 7th grade. They just want to see something gross and play with something, and they don't care about what's happening down the line. So that's what our presenters did. They brought things like pig hearts and real lungs in a and all sorts of things, but the 7th graders just loved it. And then they knew when they went back, said, wow, that ag program looked really cool. How do I get into that? Or, oh wow, health sciences, that was really neat. How do I, so they had a real life interpretation of what that looks like. So then when they come back with their guidance counselors and they have to create and formulate their academic career plan that's supposed to map their trajectory the rest of their high school career, they had a real understanding of what that meant. And part of that, we gave booklets and that outlined all the pathways that were represented, what you can make as far as career earnings in those fields and what goes into that. So it was a success, and that happened on October 21st and 22nd last year. We began planning October 23rd for the next one, so we are going strong right now. We have a lot of presenters wanting to come back and then others wanting to sign up. So if you know anybody that might be interested in come, October 11th and 12th are our dates this year. So, okay, enough plugging in. Enhance academic career plans with extension. Right now, our guidance counselor at the high school, working with our 6th, 7th, 8th graders, Danny Pond, is working on a way to incorporate the WOW Career Expo with lesson plans to help transition into the high school and with that career base. We also want to work to provide additional certifications. Credentialing is one thing, especially if you give them a credential in a career sequence, but certification goes an extra level. So certification, if I come out of something like auto tech with the training I need to go into work. So now I have what the workplace would give me at that level. So those are the types of certifications we're looking for. We do have a few of them right now. We've started the WISE financial literacy exam right now, which is a good certification to have, especially if you're looking into anything business. So we have that certification. Workplace readiness is sort of the umbrella that covers every CTE competency, but that's a credential. It doesn't necessarily give you a work certification, where I can go and have a certificate that my job would actually pay for me to get. So we're looking to expand those opportunities and working with our CTE advisory group and local businesses and industrial trades reps to try to get more of those real on-the-job type training certifications. And then our final goal, we want more project-based learning and performance tasks, and our CTE department is very good at that. So they're helping us lead the charge with that a little bit and help with our flex groups and things like that. So we want to help with that. Okay. Thank you for supporting your career in tech ed, and I will need signatures for that page to submit to the state.
And the plan that we're approving is actually the spreadsheet that's attached to this. It's not-
Yes, sir. Yes.
It's all those goals are associated with page 11 of the brief.
Yes.
Right.
That's right. And the Perkins plan is roughly 13 to 15,000 every year, depending on certain formulations. So.
And I believe, Ms. Brunswick, that those funds paid for some of the tests, like the WISE test, those tests, as well as some equipment in the CTE department.
Yes, ma'am. All the Perkins funds all go to certification, credentialing, testing. It goes toward teacher training, career and technical ed training that I can't cover out of something like Title II for professional development. It covers our student special populations now only to go to like Skills USA competitions and TSA type things. It used to cover all students, now it can only cover special populations. And that's equipment, new equipment. I have a new equipment line that's very small with that amount of money, but what our department does is they pool it in and then they trade off every year. This year it's building trades, time to use it. This year it's culinary, this year, so we cycle it that way.
How many students are in?
Students
We
that
have
are,
we have lots of percentages. How many kids?
how many kids? I don't think
Ballpark.
I wrote that down, but,
It's not everybody.
it's almost everybody now, every senior class, so I would say upwards of, what our senior class is, 69, 70. So about that number is what it's based on, yeah.
65%.
That's wonderful.
And you know, we were talking the other day, the whole admin team was together, talking about the new look of the graduate in 2018 as a 9th grader. And Shannon was sharing with us some of the stuff that she's picked up at her Region 4 academic meetings, but all of this career prep, you know, we've seen the time where we went from careers to all academic, everybody was gonna go to college, and now we're going back to a balance. And so this graduate is gonna have completions in these areas. And we do pretty well with the way that we, you know, students to different locations, and they send their students back to us, and all is a cost-saving initiative, but it's becoming more and more important to have this, and we're actually pretty tickled that these workplace ready skills are going to be very important to what a high school graduate looks like going out. So the credentialing and the certifications are going to be very, very important.
Right. Any other questions?
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last but not least is 5.4, which is a presentation from Mr. Swindler on our YAP team. Mr. Swindler is our YAP team committee chair, and YAP stands for Youth Advocacy and Prevention. And we have been meeting pretty regular for the last 2 years, trying to kind of get an idea of where we can go to help students with things such as bullying, alcohol, and drug prevention in the 3 main categories. We did the Pride survey, I think most of you remember, where we actually polled students to see how many of them felt bullied at school, how many felt safe at school, how many tried alcohol at school, at home, with friends, same thing with the drugs. And then we try to come up with ideas of ways to help this group. And I'm not going to try to put you on the spot, Jimmy, but I can't remember us having a slide in here on who's a member of the YAP team. Can you go through pretty quickly?
Yeah, well, the group includes people from RCPS staff, of course, law enforcement, social service agencies, coaches, and parents of
Courtney's
RCPS.
here today, she's on the committee. Let's see, and then.
Mike is on the committee, Karen, I believe, is on the committee, Kathy is on the committee, Shannon's on the committee. Yeah, we, in our
Coach-
meetings.
Coach Sumner was on the committee.
Yep, and he just, yeah.
Sheriff Connie, Mr. Euban,
A.D. Burley, Brandon Burley, one of the
Jennifer Parker.
counselors, Mr. Allman,
Yes.
counselor is on the committee, and then the lady you mentioned from social services.
Mr. Parker.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, ready? Robin, if you can see that next slide. Dr. Matthews kind of shared the background, but again, the bottom line, the purpose of the Youth Advocacy and Prevention Group is to help our students find ways to make positive choices in regards to alcohol and drug use, as well as bully prevention. I've already gone through, what our membership is made up of. The group recommended the Pride survey a couple years ago as a way to gain confidential information from students. This was an anonymous survey. It's given nationwide. It's pretty well vetted as far as the survey goes, and we had shared the results with the board about that about a year or so ago. Next slide, please, Robin. Just a little bit of background about that survey. Some notes from that survey. What we saw was that our students' use of alcohol, drugs, and tobacco, while it was there, it was also within regional and national norms. There was some indication on the part of some of our students of alcohol and drug use on a regular basis. Some specifics, it was pleasant to see that in grades 6 and 7, we had 0 children report any use of alcohol and tobacco in the last 30 days. That was the last 30 days from the time they took that survey. Our 8th graders, we only had 5% report use of alcohol and tobacco. And then grades 8 and 9, 5% report use of marijuana. What caught our attention was the reports from grades 11 to 12, where we had anywhere from just under 24% to just over 38% report the use of tobacco, alcohol, and drugs in the last 30 days. And to put numbers to that instead of percentages, given our class sizes, that means you're looking at 15 to 30 kids per grade level, or a total of 30 to 60 kids in our school system that were telling us that these are things that they did. The other thing that we gleaned from the survey was that at school or during school hours were by far and away the least popular times and locations of use, whereas at home and our friend's house, and particularly on weekends, was the most popular reported location and times of use. Going to the next slide, the goal, again, of the YAP group is to help our schools counter or reduce this use of alcohol and drugs by our students, and again, as well as bully prevention. Suggestions in the past from the YAP group have included continuation of education programs like DARE and OVEUS, which have worked. DARE works very well in the elementary school, and OVEUS has worked well division-wide. Areas of concern focused on the reports from students that opportunity and access to drugs outside of school made it harder for them to say no. And so what the team, as a result of that, the YAP team, has been considering other ways to encourage students to say no, other ways to give our kids a reason to say no, and one of those ways is random drug testing. This is something that was actually brought up in the 2014-2015 school year meetings. Last year, in the fall, Mark Cole, who is the Athletic Director, Student Activities Director of Orange County, shared his experience, his county's or his school's experience with alcohol and drug testing at a YAP meeting, and then he also came and did a presentation here before the school board. And then we also did some research related to other testing programs that are current or have been considered in Virginia. Well, what we found was that there are other counties, other school districts that utilize testing as a reason to say no. And we also found that there was a little bit of variety in the way that they did it and the way they set up their consequences after positive tests. But that's something we can focus. I can look at the next slide, put together a chart, and I know it's probably hard for some of you to read, but basically what I got was positive confirmation from 4 schools that currently are doing drug and alcohol testing, and in one case also testing for nicotine. Orange County, whom I've already mentioned, Culpeper County, which just recently started, Pulaski County, and Buckingham County. In conversations with some of my contacts from my athletic director days, I understand that there are other school districts that are also doing this, but I did not get confirmation from those school districts, so I did not include them in this chart. Orange County does a mouth swab test. All of the other counties do a urine test. All of them test for alcohol and drugs, and then Buckingham County also tests for nicotine. There are consequences, and I struggle when I use that word because I want to stress in every case, this is not a gotcha program. No one is looking to catch kids doing something that they shouldn't be doing. What they're looking for is to give our kids a solid reason to not do those things. Give our kids a way to combat the peer pressure that is evident in obviously not only our community, but elsewhere. And then as far as the students who were tested, in every instance, with all 4 of these schools, they test athletes. In some of them, for instance, in Orange County, they test all students grades 6 through 12 who compete in extracurricular competitive activities, and that would include athletics and band. In Culpeper, for instance, it's again competitive extracurricular activities, grades 6 through 12. Pulaski County tests only athletes, grades 6 through 12. And then Buckingham County tests all students who participate in any type of extracurricular activity from grades 9 through 12. So there's a little variety, but the one common theme is students who participate in athletics. Going to the next slide. I also spoke with some representatives from some other counties that either had experience with testing or had considered it but not followed up on it. Lynchburg School, for example, tested for a number of years. They dropped the program in 2009 as part of a budget move. However, they did report that out of over 500 tests, they only had 2 positive results. Other counties that have considered it but have not implemented it included Madison, Isle of Wight, Caroline, and Henry County. Going to the next slide. After all of this, after the research that we did, and especially after consideration of Orange County's experience, listening to Mark Cole share what had happened there and the positive experience that he felt it generated, the YAP group at this time is proposing that our school board consider adoption of a similar testing program such as the one they have in Orange County for competitive extracurricular activities. We feel the next step, and again, based on the board's will or direction, would be to host a parent community meeting, having an informational agenda, a presentation followed by a question and answer session. At that meeting, we would share experiences of other schools. We may possibly even be able to bring someone in from another school where testing is currently happening. And we would suggest that that meeting date be prior to the end of the current school year. If we move forward with that, the YAP committee would work with the superintendent to draft regulation or policy for this process. And following approval and support from the board, we would anticipate a possible implementation for such a program for August of this coming year, the beginning of the next school year. However, again, I'm up here today representing the YAP group, I might add. This is not Jimmy Swindler asking for this. This is the YAP group asking for board approval to begin the parent community process so that we can, the parent community meeting process, I should say, so that we can hopefully build community support for a program that we feel will help our athletes stay up.
So YAP is asking for the board to approve beginning the process for this program.
Which the specific step for the next step for that process would be to hold an informational meeting.
Do you recall the budget impact that Orange experienced? Do you remember?
I don't recall oranges. I want to say Mark Cole, I believe he had mentioned the figure of about $10,000. I can tell you that I've researched it for our school and for our numbers, and our budget, and the impact of the budget would be certainly under $2,500. I believe the exact figure I'd come up with was $2,075, and that was based on the cost of the test and the estimated number of tests that we would give based on the number of athletes and extracurricular participants that we have.
Currently, that's not in our 2016-17 budget.
No, it's not. We do have an athletic budget, and we're doing pretty well so far because they do a lot of fundraisers. But as far as the school board budget, I have no amount for them to use for athletics. And the money's not going to me, it's not going to be an issue. The issue with this is going to be the community support or buy-in. This is actually, what Mr. Swindler's presenting is actually step 3. The first step, my first year as superintendent, I was asked to research and come back to the board specific policy on drug testing. We found some, we did a little bit of discussion. I purposefully kind of put it off a little bit. I wanted to kind of see the dynamics of our students and see what we were dealing with. We then decided, the YAP group was very instrumental in pushing forward to do the pride survey. We do feel like we got good results because the students were allowed, their names or numbers were not connected with that survey. And again, as Mr. Swindler mentioned, the comments that they made was they're not doing drugs at school, they're not doing drugs lots of times even at home, but they're doing it at a friend's house or at a party somewhere or in the car once they leave or something like that. Now, we do not have a huge amount of incidences at all, and the board knows how seldomly you have students that come before you that are kicked out of school. It's very, very seldom. So we don't have that type of a problem, which a lot of these bigger schools were really going after that. But again, our students are telling us, you know, I want to fit in with the group. So the idea with the YAP team was step 3, which would be let's talk to parents, let's talk to the community, and see how they feel about entertaining this random test. You've already heard from Orange County the randomness of the test. An outside agency has some student numbers, they send a number to you, you know then to do the swab test. We certainly would not do the urine test. But the swab test would test for everything that we would be looking for. That would be packaged by the student in front of the principal. They would do the swab mouth, close it up, and it would be sent back off. And then if it does come up as a false positive due to some medication the child is taking, the physician on site would actually be contacting that parent.
Their physician.
And talking to the parent about what medications your child may cause that. The key to this is, you know, we started off with a 27-slide presentation with all the different consequences that the YAP team has looked at, but we're not to that point yet. The board has to do a policy if they were to go forward with this, but what YAP is asking is to help out with the procedural. For example, the first consequence isn't you're kicked out of school. They wouldn't make that decision. The first consequence is you might miss a ball game, you may miss a practice time, those type things. And And that's yet to come. There's a process that we would have to go through. What our parents don't know a whole lot about, a lot of them were not at the meeting where the gentleman gave a really outstanding presentation from Orange County. We just feel like we would need to have the community involved with this if the board wishes us to go further. If the board doesn't want to go further, there's no need in starting that. It will cause some will be a little over-sensitive to it and some won't. I mean, it just depends.
And did it, I was here when Mark presented, but I don't recall, does it also include things like steroids?
Yes.
It did, didn't it?
Yes, pretty much covered the gamut as far as illegal, unauthorized drugs, including steroids. And one of the things I noticed in most of the consequences, the consequences for steroids are typically more severe than, but that's a VHSL rule. There is a VHSL rule that you would have to follow in regards to that as far as, and by consequence, I mean ineligibility for participation in athletics.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah, it's my understanding that the gentleman from Clark said that the swab did not indicate steroids. It only indicated alcohol, marijuana, and I think that's all. I'm pretty sure. Maybe not.
No, I mean, I've spent a lot of time.
Steroids are different, that's a different ballgame.
It is, but I can tell you, the name of the company is called the Trident Corporation. They're out of Richmond. And I've spent a lot of time in emails and phone calls. Robin Cagle is a lady that I've worked with, and I actually have a sample of a test kit. If you'd like to see it, I'd be happy. But they do, they can pretty much test for whatever you want. I mean, like I said, I was surprised to learn that one school does a nicotine test, and when I contacted Trident, they said, yeah, we can do, there's obviously an extra cost for it. And the way it works is the alcohol test, you get an instant response. And then the drug test, that swab is sent into the lab. But yeah, steroids and, pretty much all across the board as far as illegal drugs are tested.
I don't like the idea of singling out athletes, and I would rather see
Well, I don't mean
random
that's
testing.
That's the only people the law allows you to test.
Yeah.
Yeah, the law is very specific. You cannot test students in school. You can test students in extracurricular because they're not mandated. So you see some have extracurricular competitive, which would be things like VHSL, which again would include things like band and sport would be another one you would think. Because drama is,
Well, yeah, drama, for instance, Elastic Bowl, that's
is
considered.
Quiz Bowl VHSL?
Yes, it is.
So all of those would be. Now, some schools just do extracurricular, which might be your National Honor Society, your Beta Club, if they meet after school. So that's something else that we would consider. I think, I hope I'm speaking correctly.
Drug testing, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
I mean, you're sort of like facts, you're guilty until you're proven innocent.
The purpose of the program is multifaceted. As Mr. Smoller said, it's not to get you, which goes against my nature. But it's not, there's no automatic reporting to law enforcement. It's all about diverting that child from a bad set of choices. And a lot of kids, once you get into that set of choices, from my experience outside of the school, those friends tend to stick with you and you continue to make bad choices. We've had few, thankfully, but we've had distribution from other kids in the school. We've had possession, and if you think that's all you have, you're kidding yourself. That's what you catch. People drive drunk, I think 1,500 times before they get caught. There's more going on. Outside of this, I've come into contact with many young people from our sports teams, from other extracurricular activities that I knew were engaging, but I couldn't prove it, therefore I couldn't go forward with it. That's on a punitive side. On a positive side, it's not to punish the child, it's to keep that child from going down a bad road. And it happens to a lot of people and a lot of kids because it's recreational, it's only marijuana, it's only this. Marijuana's still legal in Virginia. It's still going to be on your record. Is that something we want to check, put the kid with? Mr. Cole was very persuasive with his argument. He had dozens of kids come to him and tell you, thank you, because now when I say, no man, I don't want it, I don't want to touch it, I don't have to be all, that's teacher's pet or whatever the term today is, because they have a valid excuse to say, you know what, I don't need it, I'm going to states, I'm going to college, I'm going to whatever. I don't need that foolishness. But if you think recreational use that doesn't lead to other use isn't going on, we're kidding ourselves. And it's, like I said, it's not punitive, it's steps to not rehabilitate, but to divert that child. What does drug use do to you? What happens down the road? It's not to beat that child down, it's to say, hey, you don't need this, there's another way to go. And I think Orange County hasn't had any positives for that. So apparently that message is getting across, because I know that they have had other kids that, for different reasons, were caught with drugs down there. But apparently the message at least got through to those kids that were tested. And I don't care if it's the smallest class we have, or if it's just one person. If we save one kid, somebody explain to me how that one child isn't worth it. To me, they are. So for $2,000 that we can probably find somewhere, take it out. You can take it out of my cut. But if for $2,000 we can save one kid, whether we ever realize we did or not, but I guarantee you we will, it's more than worth it. Is it invasive? Not really. It's a mouth swab. You're putting a big Q-tip in your mouth and you're thumbing it. Parents can opt out of it. Children can, with the parents' permission, can opt out of it. But if you're going to represent our school, you're going to represent these clubs, these organizations, you need to do so with pride in yourself and integrity. And steroids, we all know is bad. What it does to you mentally and physically and emotionally is horrible. And it's out there too. If we save one kid, how is it not worth it for that small of a price? We're testing 10% randomly. It's completely confidential. There's no name attached to it. The company does not get any kind of information directly. The physician may, and that's so he can call the parents and talk to them about some of the plan to make sure that this child gets the diversion resources.
So I don't like the fact that the kid, because he's a minor, just all of a sudden has to do a drug test.
He does not have to do it. He has to opt in.
Can the parent opt out for his own child?
Yeah, that's right. The optionality
can opt out.
Can they still participate
No,
in the
no.
sports?
Well,
No, so they can opt out, but then they're eliminated from the sports or the activity. So by opting out, you're more or less saying, I'm guilty of it, assuming from the program.
Well,
Somehow
don't
it's
some
sort of
medications for allergies and things, and asthma and things like that show up.
And that is
That's what
why,
I'm opposed to.
and that's why there's a medical review officer who would,
Well,
that's the first thing that they
because,
would do.
Jimmy, we have more people in this school on allergy medicine and asthma medications than we have drugs, I'll guarantee you.
I think we got
I'm not
plenty
worried
of
about
drugs too.
medicine.
I'm just not
Come back
sure what
positive.
drugs.
I've never had that.
It's the way
It's
it
got
goes.
to be an opiate, it's got to be a benzamate, whatever it is. It's got to be an illicit substance that you need a prescription for,
That's right.
or you've got to have it over. I've had asthma, and I've got severe allergies. I've never had anything that I've been prescribed or taken that's come back on the test, and I have to take drug tests. We test our bus drivers and other people, we're probably going to test our coaches, it's coming down the line. There's nothing over the counter, and there's very few prescription medications, from my experience from testing for work release and workforce home arrest, when I worked for the jail, that will come back. It's got to be a strong narcotic type, up or downer type medication. Your Claritin D, your Lager D, none of that's going to come back. Your Tylenol 3, that's going to come back because of codeine. It's got to be something much more severe than your generic medication. Nothing in CVS in front of that counter is going to test positive. And when it does, there's a detailed step program where the child can, the parent says, oh, wait, I've got this medication, he broke his leg, which you wouldn't mind anyway, he broke his leg, he's taking this, he's taking that, or she's doing this or that, or we had to do this for whatever, here it is, good deal, that's it. But if the kid's sitting between mom and dad are smoking on Saturday night, then maybe this child needs that intervention that they're not going to get any other way unless we happen to stop out of the house. And for the child's, well-being, the better, the sooner the better.
If they're smoking, you stop by the house and I'll let you in.
If you smell it,
Well, not because you're the school board representative.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No, just because I'm so handsome. There's kids like that. There's kids in those situations. Hopefully where Mrs. Parker will come into it.
Random drug testing is the way to do it.
I don't think random is either.
I mean, I like the fact that if you can do it to the whole school population.
Yes.
How come the kids that are enrolled in the school don't have, I don't know if choose to do it, it should be okay for the whole school population, and I know it's against the law. So therefore, why is it okay for us to randomly say, if you want to play sports, you may get drug tested?
Because,
I don't like it.
again, the court cases, Ms. Meyer, were all stem, and it started with the school in Washington State, and the problem that they had, and this is something that I think is important, their athletes, as at most schools, were the leaders of their school. And what they felt, they had a problem that their athletes, a huge proportion of their athletes, were partying hard in the terms of the time, and were setting an example that everybody else wanted to follow. And they wanted to do something to stop that. And when it got to the Supreme Court, the decision simply was, if it's an extracurricular activity, if it's outside the scope of the normal school day, and if it's creating, I want to say the word disturbance, but I don't think that's it, then you can do it. You can't, if somebody's just here during the normal school day, they're not going to allow that. Now, to me, looking at these pride survey results, given our numbers, given the fact that these survey results show us that we've got anywhere from 30 to 60 of our juniors and seniors who, within the last 30 days of the date of the survey, had used alcohol or marijuana or other drugs, I don't know. I understand why people are opposed to it, but for me, the light bulb went off when Mark Cole said to me that our kids came to me and thanked me for giving them a cool, those were his words, a cool reason to say no. And that's when the light bulb went off for me.
All right, here's where we're at. We have two board members that have hesitation about playing. We have one who I understand very clearly. Mr. Grove, where do you stand? Because what's about to happen? This group, they don't want to take the effort and the investment to go forward if they're going to get squashed before the 2016-17 school year begins. That's what I wouldn't want to start down this path and create policy to propose and all of this, or even have a parent meeting to discuss it. If it's just going to get squashed come the July meeting, for example. So tell me where you stand tonight, if you don't mind.
It's interesting to me that the numbers in the survey show that somewhere in the 5% range up through grade 9 indicated the use of alcohol. So to me, that would be 6 kids in a grade level or less. And that's where our drug and alcohol education stops. And I'm a firm believer that you don't test kids away from drugs and alcohol, you educate them away from drugs and alcohol. And, you know, I don't know whether our 10th grade health curriculum still has health and has driver's ed, but I'm not sure it still has drug and alcohol education. They don't, okay, that's good. All right, so we're stopping at grade 10. So our 11th and 12th graders are the ones that everybody's concerned about, and that was 2 years ago, 11th and 12th grade. We don't know where they are in that process. We haven't had, to my knowledge, no one has been brought to us for possession under the influence, yada, 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 this year. I'm still concerned that the NCAA only tests 9 kids a year. They have a football team of 100 kids. And they also tell them when they're going to get tested. So, you know, if they're saying, yeah, they do.
I'm not.
They look at it. They say your test is Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Show up. They come 3 days ahead of us. I don't think so either. But if you're going to test them, you might as well try and catch them, I guess. I'm opposed to random testing of selected kids. The kids that you're testing are kids that are representing your school voluntarily. They're the ones going out, playing football, they're wrestling, they're sweating, they're working their tails off voluntarily. And I don't think we should submit them to that. I truly don't. I don't know what parents are going to say, and this is the other side of my coin. parents were overwhelmingly pushing for this kind of a thing, maybe I'd change my mind. But I don't think that's gonna happen.
So you are, I'm just gonna make sure
I'm opposed to it personally, but I would listen. My thought would be to have a parent meeting, to listen to what parents are saying, and even have kids come to this meeting and hear what they say, and then make a decision about policy and all these other things. That would be my halfway point, one would say. Personally, I'm opposed to it. I probably would, I don't believe I'd ever take my kids out of a sporting event or out of being an athlete. They were all athletes, but it would rub me the wrong way to have to sign that piece of paper that they could be tested. Especially when they were never tested in college. Never.
And I would just say for myself, I think the committee that was formed is a sufficient cross-section of the types of most people that are exemplary of being affected and understanding the problem the best. And I like the idea of steering the motives of young people best we can. And I would be in favor. And so my dilemma is, I tend to think we need more information. And I tend to think that we're going to need to have this town hall before we can, because as it stands tonight, the whole idea would be squashed. Squashed. Correct? And so I think it certainly has merits to continue, but unfortunately, before the board is going to have any consensus, we're going to need to have a broader feedback. So it seems like I'm not sure how many people would show up to a town council meeting on such a topic. But it seems like that's going to be the right approach. I mean, has Jeff talked about this next meeting, if it was going to happen?
Well, we talked about that that's the logical next step, but we, like I said, we wanted to make sure that, and I understand, I think what you're saying, which is that go, if it's the pleasure of the board, have a public meeting, not necessarily develop any policy procedure. I think that personally, and again, I would concur or defer to Dr. Matthews, I think we have enough information that we can present based on what other programs are doing, what other schools are doing, that we can present a fair amount of information, maybe even too much information, but that's the challenge. I mean, as she said, my presentation started off with 27 pages.
It's not a sales job. It should be presented balanced.
Well, yeah, no, it's, well, I mean, I don't know what let me put it this way, I'm not hearing any negatives from anybody that's implemented this program. I spoke with, I can never remember his last name, but E.G., principal at Eastern View, or Culpeper, one of the two schools over there, and again, having spoken with Mark Cole, they feel very positive about the program. But again, I don't, I'm not sure. Go ahead.
Have you talked to anyone north side or north of here?
I've reached out as far as to, emails to other ADs, to other principals, haven't heard anything back. And now, again, I also reached out to everybody that I served on the executive committee with the Virginia High School League, and those that I heard back from were those who I was able to report on tonight. I mean, I know that in a neighboring county, I believe in Madison, it was one of the schools listed, they had considered it, they went so far as to have the public meeting, and then they didn't go any further. I mean, that's how it went there.
That's because, well, I know about that.
And
There was opposition to that.
when you have parents, and the majority of parents, and that doesn't mean the 20 that come, are for it, I could be persuaded. But just for us to say it's okay to randomly test children, I don't like it. And I specifically don't like the fact that if they're doing the extracurricular, whether it's music, sports, or what, that they're singled out and the others are completely free. And if you say, I don't want my child tested, they can't participate. So specifically
Not
Quiz
athletes,
Bowl.
right.
I think it's out there,
It sure is.
but I think it's the whole school population, but I just don't think randomly dress testing is the way to solve the problem. More education would be helpful.
How many of the kids that participate in extracurricular activities make up our student body? How many, percentage-wise, or ballpark, how many 12th graders are involved in extracurricular activities?
I would say that number approaches 50%.
Okay, so
If
we'd
not
be testing roughly 10% of
Well,
at least half the student body.
I would say that
Give or take.
the number that I came up with, let me put it this way, the number of athletes, the testing pool that I came up with was 500. Now, our student body from grades 9 through 12 is 371, and you know, and the reason the number is bigger is because we have many kids who participate in multiple sports. So I took the tallies of all the teams, came up with 500, 10% of that would be 50 tests, and probably would roughly divide it if we were to do it 25 per semester. But again, please keep in mind, all the YAP group is asking for tonight is a blessing to have this public meeting.
That's, you were asking for the ability to set procedures. And so
Well,
to adopt.
So now we're.
Anyway, to draft them, so I think the thing to do, Jim, really is.
He was giving you a step, I didn't mean
Yeah,
to
it's a
interrupt you.
step by
He was
step.
giving you a step by step. I mean, he says clearly that host a parent community meeting. But just to let you know that following that meeting, if it looks like it's gonna be a pro, we, you know, thumbs up, we're gonna have some procedural things in place to take back to. Our policy-making group is made up of 2 of our board members that make policy, and then we implement it with, or we give it to all the others and it's voted on. So there's a lot of work to be, yes, that's the 2 of y'all. So there's a lot of work to be done, but to have this parent meeting, I felt very strongly like we needed to have some support from the board before we had a parent meeting on this. I do think there are gonna be some that are gonna be just, you know, adamantly opposed to it, and I think there are gonna be others, that it's not gonna bother them, and they're gonna say, I think it's a great idea. So,
Yeah, it seems
where it's
like-
gonna
The
fall, I
majority
don't
want it,
know.
then that's fine, but if the majority are adamantly opposed, then I don't think you should proceed. I think if they're children, we educate them.
All right, so
We
at
don't
this
bring-
point, we're gonna tell YAP that we would like to see a town meeting, which we are invited to, so that we can, listen.
Could that be in the gymnasium, maybe?
And you have to advertise it well, and they tell them how important it is that they come, that it's an
Well,
up or down vote, or
I mean,
whatever you have to do to make sure that you have more than 2 people there.
It's complicated, because here we are, for all of us here to show up to listen, now we actually have a meeting, and we've got to advertise that too, so.
Well, we could have, y'all are welcome to come to any community event, so as long as we don't put you
Don't
seated
sit
together.
next to each other?
Mhm,
Well,
Yes,
that's
sir.
not.
Yeah, but you, you
So
know,
anyway,
sit
listen,
together.
we've been on this
I'm
long,
gonna
so.
Y'all can all sit across
So,
the way.
that seems to be where we stand, and as soon as we get past that, we'll take our next step, I guess.
Well, and what I'll work with Dr. Matthews, of course, but our intent is to do this, it says in here by the end of this current school year,
Yeah.
which is, you know, 6 weeks
6
away. So, you know, we'll, as soon as possible, as soon as we can reasonably set it up and get word out.
I think I would be inviting every parent in the county. I mean, I really,
I think you're absolutely right.
K
I
through
think
12.
Pre-K through 12, yes, sir.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some type of presentation followed by Q&A.
And if I could do it, if it's okay with the board, if Mr. Cole could be here, would that be all right with the board?
Not unless you're gonna have somebody on the other side.
I mean, he would be able to answer questions about how it was implemented.
That's what I'm saying. What do you, I don't understand what you mean by the other side, Mr. Grove.
I think, yeah, I don't think it's a side thing at this point. I think it's just information on if we did it, this is how we would do it, and this is what we'd be testing for, this is how it would be a swab test, that type thing. I don't think a for it against is gonna make a difference to it.
Maybe
They're gonna be for.
the best thing to do then probably is to use him in the QA time and make the presentation our own.
Sure.
All right, well, thanks for that. Sorry it took so long.
Well, thank you very much.
I mean, it's a complicated.
It is. And
With things like this, you don't wanna rush.
Oh,
You wanna be sure you get them right.
yeah.
Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
Jim.
Appreciate it. That ends the report.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. All right, moving on to budget and finance. Moving on to budget and finance, is there any there any update for budget and finance?
No, sir, there's not an update from the committee. The board met for the work session on 3/30/2016. The only thing that I might possibly share, I'm trying to think, finances, Ms. Johnson, and you, finance. And y'all will go to the president of the board of supervisors meeting on Friday. I don't know if you want to give a quick update on that.
The update on what the board, well, there was no decision, because it had, they couldn't vote on it. But it looks to me as if that they would like to cut the school board budget $70,000. And finally, that, three of them agreed to come down to 50, but it's no promise that, because it's, they have to have a public meeting before they do anything. So, the only thing I can say that came out of that meeting, I didn't like it.
Was there any, so what was the, is there a justification for the chosen figure?
Well, yes, I think they took the amount that the county is, the amount that they're out of, and maybe took all of their other offices and divided it up, and they came up with $70,000 for each one. That's the only thing I could come up with.
I don't believe so, because they gave a list of percentages that the other agencies were being cut.
Mr. Parrish's rationale was that our LCD went down. LCI, excuse me. LCI went down, and we received $168,000 extra, and therefore, we could afford to lose part of that.
Well, I didn't understand that from the, Ms. Kaiser.
Oh, well, I don't know what Ms. Kaiser, I know what Mr. Parrish said.
Well, he said 172
I know,
because,
yeah.
but
I
in
do
any
know that
event,
they're trying very hard, and you know, we will always try to be part of the solution, but they're trying very hard with the shortfall that they have.
That's
And
right.
all of the agencies have looked at amounts. Ours was one of the lowest percents of a cut, but our budget is so big that the lower percent, of course, there's so much more money for us.
it might be the lowest if they would come down to 50, but if it's 70, it's not.
What do you mean as a percent?
As a
Of the
percent.
bottom line?
Oh, okay, as a percentage, I see what you was talking about.
I was just hoping that I would know that it was attached to a particular line item or set of line items that they took exception with, but it's not.
no, not a line
Did
item.
not get that impression.
If-
It's the whole lowest. Yeah, that's right.
The important thing to note is that they're gonna meet on the 25th, I believe it is.
Yes, sir.
That's not been advertised yet, but I think that's when it's gonna be meeting. It'll be a budget work session of the Board of Supervisors,
Is there public hearing?
their public hearing on the 25th in our auditorium.
Yes.
And
So
that's,
it would be important for folks to come to that.
and that's a budget work session for them?
It's just like last year, they have it every year.
Yeah, I know that.
And they're not gonna approve their budget until May, the second week in May, I think. What's their
I
regular
thought it
meeting?
was, the regular meeting is the second. I thought it was the second.
Oh, it's the first Monday in May?
So it's,
It's always.
That's what it is,
Yeah.
right, that's what it is.
so the hearing is the April 25th.
April 25. And they'll approve their budget on May 1, or May 2.
And just like last year, we had approved our budget, we had the public hearing, we were later told our budget did not pass, we were asking for 97,000, I think, 96, 97. And so after that, we called and we would come back and to cut the budget. But I think we should stand ready to have a meeting possibly between the 25th and the 2nd, just in case.
I agree.
Well, I think too, even though we felt, we came away from there with, they would cut us 50,000, but that doesn't mean that when they have their work session, it will go back up to 70.
Or it could come down to 30.
Well, it could, yes, but it's not, yeah, but I was told by all three of it's no promise, but we'll do our best, so. And when we
The
came-
fact is that we came in with a balanced budget.
That's true.
And we
And we
did
cut
ask for
$10,000 to start with, and they want us to cut 75 more.
And they also made the statement, which I appreciate, that they had never cut,
A balanced
a balanced budget
Right.
for the school.
or zero-based budget.
So for the public's sake, just know that depending upon what happens on the 25th, the reason for us to meet between the 25th and May the 2nd would simply be to develop some contingency plans.
That's right.
Because we still don't even know, we don't even know a decision until May the 2nd.
Determine what we would cut. That would be a contingency.
It's hypothetical until the vote is made on the bottom line.
Well, we could almost, I'm not having a meeting, I would say, but we need to have a plan about what, how much we could, what we would cut with the amount.
Right, so it's good to get together and prioritize and make sure we know those priorities, right?
That's
And
right.
that we understand the plan.
Right, yeah.
If it's 30, if it's 40, it's a 70.
If it's a small amount, I hopefully we'll be able to come up with something. Our budget is not padded. So it will be cuts in people or programs. There's no other way around it. However, I really would hate to start cutting something before we've been denied the amount we've asked for, because it is a budget need.
Right,
So,
that's why I'm wondering, why would we,
yeah.
I would
just-
always say
we
we just,
typically, sometimes we just get together and say, okay, if a board supervisor mentions something to one of y'all,
That's
you know,
right.
we
That's
really
what I'm
feel
saying.
like you're too high on materials and supplies, then I get a thumbs up from y'all and we go start researching. I mean, we're doing that right now. We're
All
down
right.
to rebidding out paper towels. I'm not kidding, so
all right.
it's important. We have to have a few of them.
That's how no fluff in that budget is.
All right.
That's right, I guess so.
All right, thanks. Anything from facilities? Well, the only thing I can think of is we've got several little projects we're trying to whip out before the end of the year. The windows at the elementary, some of them. The windows at the high school, some of them. The portico at the high school, which we're trying to make function similar to what functions at the elementary. And so these jobs are jobs where we, the front office, were able to find funds to cover these smaller projects. And, you know, reflecting on them, by the way, I just think it's a great approach to try to get these tasks completed. Because the alternative is, what I'm used to is, they accrue and they accrue and they accrue, and then we have to get a bond so that we can get a loan, so we start making loan payments. So this is, you know, biting things off as much as we can each year to try to accomplish things. It seems to me to be a fiscally prudent thing to try to do. The board at our last meeting voted on the windows, and again, it's not all windows, it's window projects as we could afford to try to make baby steps in each facility in that direction. So, and those projects are going to start before June 30th.
Yes, sir, y'all approved them on the work session on March 30th. The lowest bidders have been notified by Mr. Swindler. They ordered, I guess it's the one, but I think this one was lowest for all of them. And so they've ordered windows. Some of the windows take 2 weeks, some take as much as, 4 to 6 weeks. So we're going to start just as soon as they get here. So it will take us all the way through probably to the second week in June before we're finished. If we're lucky, maybe the third week. It's the inside corridor of the elementary school. 11 small sets of windows that were around here, and then the front. And we're also not putting in the expensive additional divider and the portico. I think we're just doing the outside. Hopefully the buzzers will come through with a state grant, as they have the last 2 years, which really reduces the cost of this. So we're hoping to move forward.
Anything else? Thanks. Strategic planning and policy, we haven't had a meeting. I don't think get back to you.
What
I
time,
think
yeah.
I'm actually going. I think I'm going that week. What about this?
Okay, we could do any time between Mondays and Thursdays.
So we'll resolve this through an email.
Yes. All right.
And just plan something, all right?
Okay.
Thanks. Report of headwaters.
Yes, the second spring session starts April 18th for the after-school enrichment. And they have golf and tennis, and certainly could use a little help from volunteers if you know anything about tennis or golf, or anything else for that matter. Scholarship committee is meeting to review the applications. The summer internship is taking off, and with support, if they get the support, recommend they get the support from the community. And if you need summer help, let the headquarters board know, and they will try to provide you. Pat and Kevin have met with both principals, discussed the program for the calendar year for the next 16th and 17th, and discussing preliminary dates for the after-school program. May 16th, the board and both boards, headquarters and school board are to meet at the library, little conference center and unfortunately less at 5 p.m.
I'm on.
Okay, good. And that's the end of the headquarters, and Taste of Rappahannock's coming up September 10th, right? I got it memorized.
Yeah, you did good.
After work.
You bought your ticket yet, that's the important part.
I know what they cost.
Liz, could I say something there before we go and get back to this Friday's meeting? I'm really upset and disturbed that our county is so far behind and short of money. And I feel terrible. They got a bigger problem than we do. They've got to make up for this money somewhere. And so if it has to come, and that's why I said instead of 50, it might go up, it might come down. But because they've got to make this money up somewhere, and it's going to be with all of the departments. It's not just the school, and it just really disturbs me because the only place it's coming from, if they can't make it up that way, it's going to be from the taxes, and they're going to go up in taxes. And I know for a fact how people feel about taxes. I feel like that as well myself. But there's a lot of people in this county that can't pay the taxes, and I know that too. So I mean, I'm disturbed about the whole thing. I don't want anybody to think that I'm disturbed with just the supervisors. I'm disturbed about all of it myself.
You're referring to their meeting this past
Friday,
Friday.
that's right. Yeah.
Well, how many million short were they?
They thought they were $1 million short, and
Yes.
now they're 200,000 short.
Yeah. Oh, has it come down that much? I thought it was down to 5.
No, 200.
Okay. All right.
200,000, well, that's a heck of a lot better than $1 million.
That's right.
Yes, well, I thought it
5
was,
times better.
I didn't know that it was even up to $1 million, but when you look at it in that way, and as far as your tax rate's concerned, it's gonna, to make up all that's gonna.
1 cent would raise the whole 200,000 almost.
All
We
right.
raise taxes and raise taxes, though.
Yeah.
That does not be the solution. We
Well, I
balance
just,
your
I
budget
don't
better.
want anybody to think that I'm upset with the supervisors. I'm upset with the problem. I don't know. And
The
I know
problem
that-
is it's big, it's a big problem.
It is a big problem. That's exactly right. It's a big problem, and I'm disturbed about the problem. So,
All right. Moving on to report of the Mountain Vista Governor's School.
Mountain Vista Governor's School met on March 17, had 2 exceptional presentations by students who, one's going to Cornell and one's going to Yale, and they gave a 30-minute each presentation on their science project, and not the first note anywhere, and they didn't stop talking for 30 minutes. It was fabulous. Their next meeting is April 21. Unfortunately, their senior night is the same as our senior night, so we have to determine, but I have to determine which one I go to.
yeah, you have to work.
So if you're a student here, you have
You have
to
to
determine which
decide
senior
which one
night
you
you
go
go.
to.
Yeah, so does the
Happens
senior.
every single year.
Why don't we change it?
I don't know where Julia's gonna go. I have no idea whether she's coming.
She
here.
goes
they come here, right?
Well, I think last year they came here and then they went back. And
They
here
can't
and
do
then
it, they
back.
can't do it this year. It's
Well,
at
maybe not.
5:30.
Well,
And it's in Bowling Green Country Club, wherever that is. Huh? Is that Front Royal?
over on the other side of Front Row, between Front Row and Winchester.
All right.
No?
Well, at least it's not in Bowling Green, way down 95 somewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, moving on to public comment. Is there anyone that'd like to address the board this evening? If you do, you could come to the podium and state your name and district and speak into the mic.
Hi, my name is Rachel Bynum from the Piedmont District, and I just wanted to welcome Kaitlin Struckmann, who's in the back here. She is not a parent of the school, she's just a county resident who has volunteered her time to record our public meetings. I would give a silent round of applause to Kaitlin for her generous donation. The idea is to have some transparency in what's happening at our public meetings. The school board was kind to, to really, not only just really invite recording of meetings, and I just appreciate that because as a parent, it's bedtime for my kids. I'm missing important moments with my kids, and I miss them growing up. So I think it's really good to just have this. There's a lot of really needy discussion already at this one meeting, and I think it helps everybody to understand the nuances. It's one thing to record a short, 2-page minutes, but I don't think that really adequately describes what goes on. And it's important work that's going on. It's for our kids. It's for the future of our county. We also will be recording Board of Supervisors public meetings, and yesterday the Washington Town Council meeting was recorded as well. So it's really, again in the discussion, the overlay of the Board of Supervisors with the school board, it all works together, and it's a good civics lesson for our community. And just again, Kaitlin really, she's just a resident and a voter, and just volunteered to do it. So I just in the Rappahannock News and the Foothill and the Old Rag Gazette will be posting meetings on their website. So it's free. It's a free service that we can provide, and hopefully sort of a newsletter for the school. I mean, it's cool that kids who were awarded today will see their faces on the big screen. They can send it to their grandmas. It's nice. So thank you for this opportunity and for taking. This is the first video recorded meeting, and the school board is a leader in this front. I appreciate it.
It'd be good to get some feedback on whether our audio is sufficient, how well it recorded. It'd be good to get some feedback, Kaitlin.
Certainly.
And I appreciate too that you're not just setting up a camera. I noticed, you panned over to the screen, you panned over to the speakers, and so I really appreciate capturing not just this scene right here, right? Because this one would drive me insane. So thanks for what you're doing. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it, and I think the people appreciate it as well once they get a chance. And, so anyway, look at our internet sources that are recording and see if we can find that video and see what you think. And get us some feedback. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Ron Mack from Jackson District. First I want to say that this is a really good meeting to come to see these kids up here, science projects, the art students, and also the update on the fact that we are working on educating our kids for jobs in the community and whatever, and getting away from what was mentioned that years ago where everybody had to go to college. And no, they don't. There are a lot of good jobs out there that you can get that don't require a college degree, and I think it's important that kids know that. So this is set up. about was, as you may know, I had some concerns that I expressed to you earlier about financial transparency, and it came out of the parking lot paving project, and that was a surprise to many people in the community. It was a big project. It was $160,000. That's you know, a good chunk of money, and it just sort of happened, and nobody knew it was going to happen. And in the information that I have gotten on that, I can find no information where the school board at the time ever actually voted on spending that money. There was no information anywhere to indicate that took place. And so that has concerned me. And you have another project coming up now that is similar. And my concern is, and having been a former board member and been through this process, is that you have two policies in your policy procedure manual that have to do with facilities planning and construction, and they are based basically on state code. Boilerplate, the policy itself is basically boilerplate from the state code. And so I wanted to read those two. I don't know if you all have actually read them, are aware of them or whatever, but I was going to read them for your benefit and for the people that are here at the meeting, and then ask me a question. First one is facilities planning. It says the school board is responsible for the regular operation and orderly development of all school facilities. The board concerns itself with short and long-range planning. The superintendent presents to the school board annually or as necessary to coordinate with the planning process of the appropriating body a capital improvement program which includes recommendations regarding timing, location, costs, and savings associated with new building requirements and restoration and renewal of existing school facilities. The superintendent may make recommendations for new buildings and renovations after input concerning facilities utilization, development, and closure from a broad-based community representing the staff, or broad-based committee representing the staff and community. Recommendations are supported by data that supports the feasibility and the need for construction and or renovation. And the second one is construction planning. And it reads, no public school building or addition or alteration thereto for either permanent or temporary use is advertised for bid, contracted for, erected, or otherwise acquired until the plans and specifications therefore have been approved in writing by the superintendent and are accompanied by a statement by an architect or professional engineer licensed by the Board of Architects, professional engineers, land surveyors, certified interior designers, and landscape architects for such plans and specifications are, in the professional opinion and belief of the architect or professional engineer, in compliance with the regulations of the Board of Education and the Uniform Statewide Building Code. The superintendent's approval, architect's or engineer's statement, and a copy of the final plans and specifications are submitted to the superintendent of public instruction. Now, I can find no evidence in the paving of the parking lots that this, particularly this construction planning, was followed. And from what I can see from the information I've got, including the facilities report that was just presented to the board and vote that was taken on this upcoming window project, that this plan is being followed. And my question is it? Has this window project been approved and written off by an engineer or an architect as far as the specifications and what have you? And I'm not denying the fact that the project needs to be done. It should have been done 20 years ago, some of those windows. I mean, it's been long coming, And I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen, but what I'm saying is that if policy, which is based on state code, is not followed, we have a problem. And so basically my question is, have these two policies been followed in the project for paving parking lots and for this upcoming project for the windows? Thank you.
Well, you know, we were talking about windows when I was on the board, whatever, 5 years ago, this project.
We were talking about it when I was on the board 20 years ago.
Actually, I thought we took action and started it, we just never finished. All right, anyone else this evening? All right. Moving on to action items, entertain a motion that we approve the CTE local plan as presented this evening. So moved. We have a motion from Mr. Uben, is there a second? Second from Ms. Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no? So ordered. Entertain a motion for the approval of the SPED annual plan and the SPED advisory committee representatives as presented this evening. A motion from Mr. Rubin, a second from Mr. Grove. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Aye. Opposed, no? So ordered. Is there any new business? The next regularly scheduled school board meeting is May the 10th at 6 p.m. with the open session beginning at 6:30. There may be a meeting between the 25th of April and the 2nd of May, which will be a budget work session.
I'm sorry, one correction. May 10th meeting, open session is at 6, which leaves it closed.
Yeah.
Which leads into closed, which leads into, right. So that, okay, the meeting officially comes into open session at 6 p.m. We immediately go into closed session. So you wouldn't get to hear much,
But you
except to
have to go
hammer.
into open.
Right, we didn't go into open. We will go into open. We'll immediately go into closed, but what we're committing to is that we won't start anything significant or any business at all until 6:30, right? Good. Because we don't want to start without everyone available. So that's May the 10th. The 25th through the 2nd is still tentative because we don't know how the outcome's going to be from the public hearing. Maybe we'll learn something and we'll prioritize things. So you can keep your eyes open for that. It's not currently scheduled. May the 16th, this board will be meeting as a full board with headquarters at the library at 5 p.m. Right?
Right.
That's May 16th. May the 5th, Mrs. Johnson and I are going to be in Charlottesville getting trained on how to execute the superintendent's assessment. That sounds grim, doesn't it?
I said they give you a
I
good
should
lunch
say we
or
should
supper.
we do have to annually execute. Execute's the wrong word. It just seemed to turn right out. It's very negative, isn't it? Anyway,
Yeah, it's still.
we're going to be in training because there's a process and it has to be followed and new rules.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have enough already. All right, I believe that's it then, as far as meetings that we've got scheduled. All right, thank you all for coming. I entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Johnson, second from Mr. Grove. All in favor, aye?